Chiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Dead Space 2, played on Xbox 360, but also available on PlayStation 3 and PC. It's been a few years since I played the first Dead Space, 7 to be exact, so it's a little hazy on some aspects of the first. Fortunately, before you start the game, Visceral Games has provided you the ability to watch a short movie filling you in on all the plot details of the first one. Now, Dead Space 2 is rated M for mature for excessive amounts of blood and gore and horror elements, and this video will portray that. Viewer discretion is advised. The Dead Space series takes place in the future, and humanity has gone to distant planets in order to harvest more resources by taking out chunks of planets. On one such expedition in the first game, the USG Ishimura discovered an alien marker that, long story short, turned people exposed to it into the monsters known as necromorphs. Of course, seeing the alien marker's power, a religion had to be started around it, giving us unitology and the cultists that go along with it. Some bad stuff happens, our protagonist Isaac Clarke is the only survivor, and the marker is destroyed. That journey had its consequences, though. Dead Space 2 begins 3 years after the events of the first, and we find Isaac Clarke institutionalized, where we're left to assume he went crazy from exposure to the marker. This game takes place on a colonized moon of Saturn in an area known as Titan Station. Another marker has been constructed here, and Isaac must once again fight through waves of necromorphs that brought along a few new unfriendly variants this time around, as he attempts to destroy it once again. The Dead Space games are played from a third-person, over-the-shoulder perspective, and while primarily a shooter, they definitely bring forth the survival horror aspects of old. Every bit of utilized ammo is money you could have used to upgrade your weapon or Isaac's engineering rig at a workbench. I played through on normal difficulty, and while I rarely found myself wanting for health and ammo, if you get wasteful you can easily find yourself in a bind between shops. I did find myself going out of the way to grab pickups because everything you find can be sold at the store for a decent amount of credits to buy the things you actually will use. The resale value of sold items, along with the desire to purchase power nodes for upgrades, brought joy from every discovered hidden stash. I contrast this to something even as recently played as World of Final Fantasy, where the quest rewards of 5 potions or an elemental damage item just felt like items added to the stack. There are also audio and text logs to find that tell stories of individuals on the station offering you lore instead of credits. While there are several hidden areas and hallways that are dead ends, Dead Space 2 is linear in progression. You can click in the right stick to display the proper way to your next objective. Isaac eventually gains an additional nav module that lets him select shops, benches, or save points and get a line to lead him there. Isaac finds several makeshift firearms on his way through Titan Station. The most important thing is that the plasma cutter from the first game is back, one of my all-time favorite guns. You see, Dead Space separates itself from most shooters that reward and push you toward making headshots, as the necromorph's greatest weakness is found in the removal of their limbs. The plasma cutter aim is represented by 3 dots, and these dots can be shifted by a push of the right bumper to go from vertical to horizontal beams, to help you more efficiently remove enemy extremities. All weapons have an alternate fire of some sort, offering things like explosives or zoomed fire. Isaac can carry and equip up to 4 weapons at a time, and they're quickly switched by using the D-pad. Each rig that Isaac acquires has increased carrying capacity, but as you loot and dig around, you'll find yourself quickly running out of capacity at nearly every point. The game thus forces you to make decisions of how much ammo and health you want to carry versus how much stuff you want to pick up and sell, making inventory management a real obstacle. Power nodes can be found in breaker boxes or purchased in shops and applied to the upgrade grid of each piece of equipment. Some nodes are empty but must be filled in order to traverse to the bonuses you want to reach. These include faster reload speed and damage on weapons, and increased hit points, telekinesis power, and air supply on the rig. You can pull all nodes from a piece of equipment so that you can redistribute them in a new way for a small fee. Isaac also discovers suit modules that enable telekinesis and stasis. Telekinesis can be used to manipulate objects in the environment, or pull spiky appendages from downed enemies and launch them at approaching ones for pretty significant damage. Stasis becomes very important, not just in the help it provides in navigating quick-moving environmental hazards, but also in stopping the oncoming flood of necromorphs to give you a few more moments for popping off those limbs. Now, while we're on that subject, the spontaneous generation of enemies in this game can definitely be a frustration point. I would do sweeping runs of most corridors, slowly moving through and taking out the pods on walls and watching my back for ambushes, but the most common way of delivering enemies in any scenario is in popping out of impossible vents or dropping from ceilings where they weren't located before. I realize this helps provide an unsafe and tension feeling for the player, but when 9 out of 10 combat scenarios use this mechanic, you kind of just start to expect it. As in the first game, anti-gravity sections return. Now the first Dead Space just had you pushing off one surface and flying until you hit the next. In 2, Isaac's rig is upgraded with thrusters, giving these sections a lot more depth. Sometimes these areas are combined with no oxygen, so you have to work quickly to accomplish objectives and perform exploration efficiently for more loot. It is easy to get disoriented, but you can click to readjust Isaac to the assumed ground level. One of the trapped areas requires you to rotate Isaac in order to fit through safely, and while you can fly around and maneuver that orientation, a button to hold and rotate to just spin Isaac in place would have been a great help. Now the only really frustrating part of the anti-gravity sections that I encountered was one part of the game where you have to align these solar mirrors. You have no way to tell that you're getting close, and it's difficult to tell which way you need to move it. I imagine if this game were made in the next console generation, some of the reflection from the mirrors that's possible today probably would have made it simpler. One thing I've always appreciated with Dead Space is the lack of a HUD, or heads-up display. Isaac's life is part of the rig that looks like a spinal column that changes color and size as he takes damage. The half circle to the right of that is the stasis power that recovers over time. Each weapon has a small counter displaying the remaining ammo, and the objective line takes the place for need of navigation displays. It's just always enjoyable seeing developers find creative ways to do these things. Another difference from most shooters is the size that Isaac appears on the screen. There's a sort of rule of thirds by which most shooters abide, giving you greater perspective all around your character, having him only take 1/3 of the horizontal space. Dead Space pushes that to almost half at times, and I'm curious as to whether this was a design decision to increase tension for what you can't see, reducing your field of view, or if maybe the areas in the game are so cramped that the view just had to be tightened up, or else you lose the camera on the wall. I mean, it rarely got in the way, but I did feel a difference. There's a New Game Plus mode where you can take your weapons and upgrades and start the game again, as well as multiple difficulty modes for the masochists out there. The game took about 9 or 10 hours to get through, and that's with some pretty thorough searching. There isn't a lot of retread, but a few of the areas of the station did kind of have the same aesthetic and feel, and there's a revisiting of some of the areas of Dead Space 1 actually, but either it's been long enough and or the area just changed enough that it felt new. Overall, Dead Space 2 has decent enemy diversity, even with them spontaneously generating from walls at times. It has fun weapons with a sometimes compressed view, worthwhile looting, improved anti-gravity areas, an upgrading system you can look forward to, a need for thoughtful inventory management, and a good amount of environmental atmosphere and tension, even though the mechanics do get reused too many times and it loses its discomfort level. Rated as a third-person shooter, Dead Space 2 lands at a 74 out of 100, with 50 being an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. Not sure if a game is right for you? Subscribe for more objective reviews or follow me on Twitter @Umbra Games.